The Democratic Party used to be the home of liberals, defenders of free speech, protectors of civil rights, and champions of working people. Today, that party is dominated by Marxist radicals, while true liberals are nowhere to be found. Where have all the liberals gone, and how do we get them back? We'll be exploring that question, as well as presenting our PoC Top-3 and news you can't use. That's all next on this episode of The Physics of Civics. When you and I came of age, American politics was pretty much defined in terms of liberal versus conservative, right? Socialism was something that happened in Russia or China or Czechoslovakia or places like that. And in America, the few socialists that we had were relegated pretty much to the lunatic fringe.
Right.
I mean, including Bernie Sanders, who's been around a long time. But ever since Bernie gave Hillary a run for her money in 2016, socialism has become more and more mainstream. I mean, at least among the Democrats, that is. Since then, we've seen a number of leftist politicians like AOC, Ilhan Omar, most recently Zohran Mamdani in New York City, actually winning elections and pushing a hardline socialist agenda. In fact, Jay, I would say that the Democratic Party of right now has long since stopped being the party of the liberal left, and it's now clearly the party of the radical socialist left. This episode of The Physics of Civics is brought to you by Savage Soaps. Cleanse, nourish, and revitalize your skin with luxurious handcrafted soaps for men and women, all made right here in the USA with sustainable, locally sourced ingredients. Shop SavageSoaps.com for soaps, body butter, salt scrubs, and other skin-loving products. Get wet with Savage Soaps.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a traditional liberal, at least on the forefront of the Democratic Party right now. Is that something you think, we should be worried about? Is it a good thing that that this kind of socialist, Marxist philosophy is showing its face so prominently in the Democratic Party today?
Well, I think we need to take a look at socialism and see how it compares not only to classic liberalism, but to capitalism and even to fascism. But make no mistake, there's a massive difference between liberal and Marxist. And whether you call yourself a socialist or a progressive or even a communist, if you're going to do that, go that far, it's all essentially Marxism. But liberal, it ain't. So let's talk about capitalism for a minute. We like to think we live in a free society, and relatively speaking, we do. Mm-hmm. And freedom, almost by definition, is not something that needs to be imposed on anyone. You don't need to force liberty on people. All you need to do is leave them alone.
Right? That's the whole point.
Similarly, you don't need to impose capitalism on a society. All that's required for capitalism is individual choice and voluntary exchange. In other words, trade. Voluntary trade has been a normal, regular part of human interaction since, time
the beginning of civilization. Right. Absolutely. In
fact, trade has been an essential ingredient in the advancement of civilization and culture, around the world.
No question.
Capitalism is the natural outgrowth of a society where people are free to trade. Left to themselves, societies tend to evolve organically toward capitalism. Mm-hmm. You don't need to compel or coerce it. You only need to leave people alone.
Yeah, even the most primitive civilizations, even ones that exist today, they still have trade. They have what we would call in the earliest forms of capitalism, bartership, whatever you want to call it.
Now, of course, you do have to enforce laws and contracts.
Bummer.
And, basically ensure that ethical treatment of people. But no one ever had to launch a capitalist revolution.
Right. That's a good point.
Capitalism just happens.
It's natural.
Why? Because it creates wealth. Free trade occurs only when all parties involved benefit. And when that happens, wealth is created. Mm-hmm. Capitalism, with all its weaknesses, is still the most powerful and efficient engine of wealth creation mankind has ever conceived, bar none.
Absolutely. You can see that around the world.
Socialism, on the other hand, must always be imposed and constantly enforced. Why? Because socialism requires that people do more than just trade and obey the law and contribute to society. I mean, any civilization requires that much. Instead, socialism demands that, for the sake of humanity, individuals must relinquish their freedom and autonomy to the state.
Hand it over.
Hand it over, along with their wealth, their property, and the fruits of their labor. That's how socialism works. It's a centrally planned command economy in which all legitimate social and economic interaction, or the lion's share of it anyway, is a function of the state. In other words, socialism forcibly redistributes the wealth that capitalism voluntarily creates.
That's right. That's why you see in California all the producers fleeing like crazy.
Like crazy.
New York, too.
Why? Because this is not normal human behavior to just hand over one's entire life to the government. I mean, this goes against basic human nature, and so it's unreasonable to expect that everyone will simply surrender these things voluntarily. Some will.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it, Phil, you see people who are successful or people who work hard and make some, typically they're happy to help out less fortunate. You know, often it's through their church or through some sort of donations to charities. But what socialism does is force them to give the money, and then they decide who gets it, who distributes it. And I think that's where the issue is, right?
That's where the issue is. Inevitably, there are going to be those who resist giving up that kind of control over their own lives.
And there should be.
I would. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what does that mean? That means that for socialism to be a viable form of government, simply leaving people alone is not an option.
Ain't going to work.
When a single central authority decides that it's making all the decisions, it cannot and it will not tolerate, a whole lot of independent thought or action. Your compliance, along with everyone else's compliance, is mandatory and therefore must be compelled, or the whole system comes undone.
It collapses, and it always has in history.
That's right, and that's the problem. Now, how is it compelled? Well, historically, compliance with socialism has been compelled through government coercion of various kinds, with various degrees of severity, typically at the hands of a totalitarian police state.
So often we see these socialist governments start out with this sort of, this idea that it's going to be great for everyone. But what happens is in every instant, it eventually evolves into fascism. It eventually evolves into
totalitarianism.
In every instance.
And the entire 20th century was a humanitarian shit show.
Absolutely.
Featuring some of the worst, most dictatorial regimes ever, led by one mass murdering psychopathic despot after another.
Right.
Those are that's who comes to power in these systems.
They bubble to the top. What we hear this term all the time. I mean, Bernie comes to mind. Democratic socialism.
Right.
I mean, and you've got supposedly democratic socialism in countries like Denmark, Sweden.
Right.
What are your thoughts on democratic socialism? Is that just a PR phrase? Is that just marketing?
That's a great point. A lot of the politicians like Bernie and the others I mentioned, they call themselves democratic socialists. While that sounds real good on the campaign trail, your question is on point. In the real world, there is no such thing.
I think you'd call that an oxymoron.
They don't exist.
Yeah, they can't. No, not together.
Because, Jay, in the real world, democracy and socialism occupy two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Totally.
So the closer you get to one, the further you get from the other.
Right. You can't have both in one thing.
It's true that democracy can usher in a socialist regime, but as history has made very clear, once they gain power, they never give it up. You can vote your way into socialism, but you have to shoot your way out.
That's what we're all afraid of right now.
Right. So much for democracy.
Yeah.
Let's not be fooled by their use of the term democratic. They use that word the same way the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea uses it, to deceive, to mask their true intentions.
I think one of the reasons we chose this topic, and one of the fears I have, and I think you probably share, is that too many people, certainly in the public school systems, I mean, from K all the way through the end of college, I don't think they understand or ever learned what socialism, Marxism, fascism. I don't think they really get it. I don't think they really understand what that is.
No, because like you say, it always starts out as something benign, like land reform or something like that. And land reform, you seize the land from the people who own it and have worked it their entire lives for generations, and you give it to people who don't, I think
academia has done a wonderful job over the past 30 or 40, 50 years of marketing this democratic socialist idea when it doesn't really exist on paper. It doesn't.
And when you live in the ivory towers of academia, all that stuff, you can make anything be anything. If you're an artist or an actor or a TV producer, you can make the world the way you want it to be. But in the real world,
yes,
democratic socialists are mythical creatures. They're like Santa Claus, and the Tooth Fairy, and all these.
I've always had this saying, and I used to tell my kids this: it's really easy to be a Marxist or socialist when you're a multimillionaire. For Bernie Sanders, who's seems like a good guy, and I think he has good intentions, but he's got multiple mansions and. He flies around on private jets, and he's telling everyone
meanwhile,
else,
he's talking about the millionaires and the billionaires and the oligarchs and the schmoligarchs. He sounds like fucking Dr. Seuss sometimes.
All he's got to do is write a check to the government if that's how he feels. But why does he need to impose it on all of us?
Because he's not going to give up one cent of his own that he doesn't have to.
That's
not
exactly
a dime. Right. And as far as Denmark, now you bring up Denmark and Sweden. Denmark is far from a socialist country. Let's just get down to the facts. The Danish government is a parliamentary democracy, and their economic system is free market capitalism.
Right.
Period.
That's true.
And what's true in Denmark is equally true of Sweden. And, sure, they have expansive
government
welfare
programs,
states. High individual tax rates. But if you think that's what socialism is...
That's not what socialism... We have that too.
Maybe that's what academia wants you to think socialism, but that's not what it is. Either you didn't read your Karl Marx or, you didn't understand it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the issue of education and younger people today who aren't taught the realisms of these different factions. And so they don't understand the negative side, right?
Right.
And what I tell people is... find me one successful socialist government ever.
Well, as a matter of fact, if you want to see actual real-world examples of socialist governments, you need only go to Cuba and Venezuela and North Korea and other countries where the state owns the means of production. Places where things like individual rights, free speech, private property don't exist.
And Venezuela was probably the richest country in South America.
No, not probably.
They were
richest.
Yeah, they were. And now...
And now what you find there are economies in various stages of collapse, governments that are bloated and corrupt and brutally oppressive, really, leaders who live opulent, decadent lifestyles because they're insulated, just like you say. They're millionaires. They're insulated from the consequences of their own failed policies.
They don't have to worry about it.
And the citizens are impoverished and demoralized and disenfranchised. And you don't have to take our word for it. Go. Go see these places.
You could die.
No.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
It's a horrible place.
And here's the key that you have to understand. And this is what they always argue. They didn't get that way because socialism was poorly implemented. They got that way because socialism was faithfully implemented.
Yes, and that sounds like fascism to me.
Well, now that you mention it, it does.
What a segue. Right, you're welcome.
Right. You're reading my mind, Jay.
I swear, we've been together too long.
You're reading my mind, or the outline, either one. Let's talk about fascism. I won't waste time on how the American left abuses that word, as if it applied to anybody in American politics today. It doesn't.
It's sickening.
In fact, unless I'm mistaken, and I believe this is true, the last actual fascist regime on earth died with Generalissimo Francisco Franco.
Right.
Nearly 50. You remember him?
I do. 50
years ago?
Yeah.
Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead.
Yep.
That was on Saturday Night Live every week.
Every week, yep.
Okay, so let's talk about actual fascism. And for some reason, over the years, a lot of folks, particularly on the left, have come to associate socialist good, fascist bad.
They're the same thing.
What's the difference? Well, let's compare. Both typically take the form of totalitarian dictatorships under a single party rule.
Mm-hmm.
Both use the power of the state to silence dissent and maintain power.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one has any particular use for individual rights, the rule of law, due process. Both suppress freedom of expression, freedom of religion, basically freedom in general. And both use state terror to control their own people and intimidate their neighbors.
Sure.
So what's the difference? Well, from a theoretical standpoint, as far as I can see, the only real difference between socialism and fascism is a matter of state ownership. Whereas both systems, the state controls the allocation of resources, socialist regimes go the extra step of seizing the ownership of the means of productions, the factories, the businesses, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in case you missed it, is exactly what Mamdani says he wants to do in New York.
Grocery stores.
Seriously.
Can you imagine a grocery store run by the government?
Unbelievable.
Like DMV.
So the only difference
office
is that the fascists just never bothered to nationalize their industries, and socialists do. That's about it.
Right.
Now, I'm sure that there are folks out there who will say, that's wrong. Fascism and socialism are two completely different things. Fine.
They're not that different.
Sharks and alligators are two completely different animals, but it makes no difference to me whether you throw me to the sharks or you throw me to the alligators.
Right.
Either way, I get torn to pieces.
Yeah, for the general public, it's the same, yeah.
It doesn't make any difference whether the jackboot stomping on the back of my neck is being worn by a guy sporting a hammer and sickle or a swastika.
Right, what difference does it make?
Either way, my freedom gets snuffed.
What about socialism versus liberalism? I mean, I remember when Democrats were true liberals, Bill.
Right.
I remember when they supported free speech and civil rights, protecting the little guy. Yeah. What happened to that?
It's true. In a bygone era, liberals advocated for individual rights, especially for those whose rights were being denied, like you say, the little guy. And quite honestly, we were better off for it.
Yeah, labor,
the civil rights movement, anti-war, environment. These were all liberal causes, and they brought much needed change in their day.
Absolutely.
But those days are gone.
Those days are gone, man.
Today's Democratic Party is moving left faster than a Shohei Ohtani slider. And this is hardly a product of the Trump era. I mean, you could pin it on Trump if you want to, but this radicalization started freaking decades ago. And it's now gotten to where, just like you say, traditional liberal Democrats have become an endangered species. And here's another thing, Jay, and I wish the people on the right would stop referring to the Democratic leadership as liberals. They're not.
They're not. Not anymore.
Now, I know it's kind of habit, but the term liberalism doesn't apply to them.
Mm-mm.
Okay? These aren't the heirs to Scoop Jackson and Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King. The Democratic leadership today, these are people who studied at the feet of people like Saul Alinsky and Angela Davis, people who long ago embraced a postmodern socialist worldview. They don't believe in free speech. They believe in silencing expression, any expression they find objectionable.
Absolutely.
And setting themselves up as the arbiters of what is and is not acceptable.
Does that sound familiar?
Exactly.
Does that sound really familiar?
They're not interested in debate or tolerance or diversity of viewpoints, only in enforcing their own rigid political orthodoxy and demonizing anyone who deviates from it. I was watching Greg Gutfeld's show a couple of weeks ago, and I love the way Kat Timpf put it the other night, and I'm paraphrasing. She said, nowadays, if you can't check at least 2 or 3 boxes on the victim identity list, you don't get to have an opinion.
That's so true. That's well put.
And it's right. If you're not a minority and or living on the street or, some flavor of LGBTQ, etc., well, you need to just check your privilege and shut the door up.
Yep.
Right. Sound familiar?
Sure does, man.
And let's be honest, Jay, Marxists are among the most humorless and intolerant people in the world.
Look at late night TV right now.
What's left of it?
What's left of it? I mean,
yeah.
God, I'm so tired of being preached to.
I mean, say one wrong word, one toe out of line. And you're right. People are tired of getting preached to about morality by the most immoral people in the world. These people, these are not liberals in any sense. And these are people who don't care about the things that they claim to care about. That's the other thing. You know, they make a big deal about caring about the poor, the minorities. They don't care about that. They don't care about the environment. Certainly not democracy.
Right.
What do they care about?
Their mansions, their
power.
Their power, yeah. That's right. Their control.
And once they have it, they will not give it up.
No.
Why? Because they're just sure that they have all the right answers.
Yeah.
They learned everything they know about the world from a John Lennon song, and since then they've learned nothing and forgotten nothing.
Yep.
And they feel that unless they get their way, the rest of us, deplorables are going to just screw everything up, and the whole world's going to go up in smoke.
Rosie O'Donnell.
Where is she? Ireland.
Where she belongs.
Oh my God, I saw the funniest thing the other night. They had a picture of Ellen DeGeneres. Now she's in England. And they put her up against a picture of King Charles. They're exactly the same. Their ears sticking out. He said, "Yeah, to go to England, did you have to be the King of England?"
I didn't see that one.
Truth is, though, underneath it all, socialists seek power for the same reason that people on every side of the spectrum have always sought power. For personal gain.
Yep.
They want to live the good life. They want to be important people. They want to make all the rules, but never have to follow any of them. They want to help themselves to the fruits of other people's labor so they can do whatever they want to do and never face any consequences. And we know that's what they want to do because we see them doing it. Kind of coming to my final point here. If you are a true liberal, and I know there are some of you out there, including some elected Democrats.
Yeah, a few.
These Marxists are not your friends. Your liberal tolerance and open-mindedness have no place in their world. Many liberals have kind of gotten wise to this.
I think so.
I mean, look at the walk away movement. Look at how the MAGA movement has grown. I mean, millions of Trump voters, not to mention several of his cabinet picks, were once what? Liberal Democrats.
Right.
And the dirty little secret that they've discovered is this. The enemy of the liberal left is not the conservative right. It's the Marxist left. And I think people need to understand this. So let's talk about the divide between the classic liberals and the conservative right. Okay, what our politics used to consist of?
A traditional liberal today seems to have more in common with conservatives than they do with their far left socialist Marxist Democrats that are in the party now. Don't you think?
Oh yeah.
I tell you what, if you look at many Republicans today, they would be perfectly in line with JFK, with many liberal Democrats from a generation ago.
Right, because they were staunchly behind the Constitution. They were staunchly American. They were America first.
Absolutely.
John F. Kennedy was a supply-sider.
That's right.
He understood how taxation works, and we're going to get into that another episode. The divide historically came down to a fundamental disagreement about the proper role of government in a free civil society. Very quickly. Liberals tend to believe that government is, by and large, a force for good in society and should be expansive and activist. Conservatives tend to believe that government is, at best, a necessary evil that should be limited and constrained. Personally, I tend to come down on the side of limited and constrained.
Same.
As I believe our founders did also, which I think is why they wrote the Constitution
the way they did.
Yeah. Right. But these are things about which reasonable people can differ. We can and we should debate issues like, how best to deliver health care, what sensible gun control looks like, how to handle immigration. These kinds of differences have long divided the liberals and the conservatives, and free speech and open debate and ultimately the ballot box is how we've always settled them.
Yeah.
But when it came to the self-evident truths, as they say, about unalienable rights and the Constitution and free speech and all that, there was never any major disagreement between classic liberals and traditional conservatives. I mean,
No.
these are American values, and we're all Americans.
Well, there's sure differences now. If you look at the parties,
Well, right.
completely different.
It's completely different. And while socialism might seem like the shiny new object these days, especially among
Young people and
the wealthy urbanites and young people, college kids, trust me, socialism isn't new.
no.
It's been around for more than 100 years. It's as old and as dead as Karl Marx himself. And it has failed in every way that a system can fail. Let's face it.
Every time.
Socialism is the enemy of freedom. It's the death of democracy, and it is the destroyer of nations. My advice to young people looking for answers: do your homework. Read the history. Think. Okay? Don't just accept the social media memes and the sound bites that are fed to you about anything.
Well put.
And honestly, Jay, I believe there is still an important place for actual true liberals in American politics.
Absolutely.
People who don't necessarily toe the conservative line, but who still love America and still believe in the Constitution. I say let's get back to that. I say if you're a liberal, by all means, be a liberal. Stand by your principles. Stand up for the little guy and the rights of the disenfranchised and all that. Frankly, I think America needs more liberals. For our two-party system has served us well over the years, and for that we need two strong, great parties. And now that the radical left seems to be kind of back on their heels, now would be a great time, and I'm looking at you, John Fetterman, for traditional liberals to stand up and reject this destructive lie. Take your party back.
Yep.
If you can.
Time to reset.
Yeah, and as a conservative, believe me, I'm rooting for you.
All right, it's time again for this week's PoC Top-3.
I'm ready. What's our topic today?
Our topic today is our favorite store-bought desserts. I know people are saying, what does that have to do with what you just went through? But no, something light and fun.
In a word, nothing.
Yeah, right. You go first. What are your top 3 favorite store-bought desserts?
Let's see. Well, I like Oreos an awful lot.
Who doesn't?
That'd be number 3. But of all the different varieties of Oreos, my favorite, white fudge covered Oreos.
Oh God, those are good. Yeah.
Now I only see them in the stores around Christmas time, and I always get a couple of boxes.
Yeah,
but
I
they're
haven't seen them in a while. I was going to say,
good, man.
When we were kids, they had Oreos. That was it. Now they got like 40 varieties of Oreos,
and they're all pretty good.
Yeah, they're all.
The classic is still kind of my favorite, but my real favorite is the white fudge.
Well, let me tell you something. Have you checked out Paul Newman's Oreos?
No.
Try them, bro. They're cheaper.
Right.
The thing is, it's all natural. So it's real sugar, no processed flour. It's all natural stuff. Well, I thought, I'm going to try these. Man, they are delicious. All right, what's your number 2?
Okay. Number 2, I would say those Entenmann's Raspberry Danish.
Oh, God, yeah. I haven't thought about those in a while.
Freaking good, man.
Yeah, those are good.
I like raspberry just about any, but raspberry on a flip-flop and I'll eat it. Number 1, and this is out there by a good measure, Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream.
Really?
Coffee ice cream in general. Ice cream is I'm an ice. I could give up a lot of things before I could give up ice cream. Ice cream is like good for my soul, And of all the flavors, coffee is my favorite, and of all the coffee ice creams, Haagen-Dazs is my favorite. I think it's the best.
Not my favorite ice cream. I don't do that much ice cream, and certainly
you can give yours to me. I'll take yours.
All right, done. You want to hear my top 3?
No. Oh, yeah. Yes, I do.
Number 3, and you may or may not know what these are. Walker's Pure Butter Shortbread Cookies. They come in a little, a little red pack.
Little tin,
it's like
little plaid
$84 for 10 cookies. But oh my gosh, they are so good. I love shortbread anyway. My number 2, I love a good chocolate cream pie. Ooh. And when I can't make one or have someone make one for me or buy one at a pie shop, Marie Callender has a really good, and you stick it in your freezer, the pie, chocolate cream. You pull it out of the freezer, cut a slice, stick it on the counter, let it sit for a half hour, 20 minutes or something, and it, softens up a little and decadent.
For store-bought pies, Marie Callender is pretty good.
Yeah, they got a nice apple and a nice cherry.
Yeah.
But my number 1, and this is something that I'm addicted to, and I have been for a few years now, Dove Promises. Those little chocolate, wrapped in the blue tinfoil, the milk chocolate version. I have a bowl sitting next to my recliner, and I got the belly to show it, man. I drink a couple beers and eat a few of those every night when I'm watching TV. So
I've got a good friend who doesn't like chocolate.
Speaking of communists.
Yeah. I said, what are you?
What the hell?
No, but she just doesn't like chocolate.
Wow.
For whatever reason, whatever. So that's more for me.
Some childhood trauma or something. That doesn't make any sense.
Let's talk about some news, and a particular type of news, the kind that you can't use. What is our news you can't use story?
This is from AP by Justin Spike, and it's an article out of Hungary. Tens of thousands of centuries of old books are being pulled from the shelves of the medieval abbey in Hungary in an effort to save them from a beetle infestation that could wipe out centuries of history. So this is kind of serious, actually.
Yeah.
You've got books that are over 1,000 years old in this abbey that they keep almost like a library.
And they're now bug food.
They're bug food, man. They were going through and reorganizing it, and they found a section where there was a lot of dust, and they went through the books, and they, some of these books, let's face it, they aren't looked at very often, right? It could be 100 years since anybody's looked at this 1,000-year-old book. But these are really an essential part of history, especially of that part of Europe. So it says here that the beetle invasion was first detected during a routine library cleaning. Employees noticed unusual layers of dust on the shelves and then saw that holes had been burrowed in the books.
Eesh.
Yeah. So the abbey was founded in the year 996.
Okay.
4 years before establishment of the Kingdom of Hungary, sitting upon a tall hill in the northwestern Hungary area. The abbey houses the country's oldest collection of books, as well as many of its earliest and most important written records.
Wow.
So there's a fear here that they're going to lose some history. So not only do they have the problem of pulling all these books, but now they have to figure out, and there's thousands of books that they're pulling that are affected. They got to figure out how to restore all these books and make sure we hold on to this history that's very important.
Well, first I got to fumigate the place, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Among the library's most outstanding works are 19 codices, including a complete Bible from the 13th century.
Wow.
It also houses several hundred manuscripts predating the invention of the printing press in the mid-15th century.
So handwritten actual manuscripts.
Hand-bound leather books.
Well, that's our show this time, folks. Thank you for joining us on The Physics of Civics. Check us out. If you have any comments, send it to ThePhysicsOfCivics@gmail.com. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Physics of Civics.